Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ray Warda, Outreach and Marketing Director for BLB Resources. And with me today, my guest is Johnny Tran. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you, Ray.
He's our contract manager for the area of 5S region, which is the states of California and Hawaii. So today's presentation is in regards to the Buyer Select Closing Agent Program. And the reason why we wanted to make this presentation was because we want to give you another avenue to find more information in regards to some tutorials or procedures and some most common errors that happen on HUD listings that you should be aware of as a closing agent, so that way you can have a more smoother transaction, more smoother closing that benefits you and the agents and us all together. So that's why we wanted to put this presentation together, and hopefully it's going to be something that's beneficial for you. And this actually relates, even though Johnny is our contract manager for just California and Hawaii, but this presentation actually relates to all of our states that we're contracted in, which is 3S, 5S, and 6S regions. As you can see on your screen, the states of Arizona, California, Hawaii, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. So with that said, let's go ahead and start this, and hopefully all is well out there. Let's begin and talk about some procedures, and we're going to start with, of course, the agenda. We're going to talk about the preliminary title report, the procedures of how to handle that, the estimated settlement closing statement along with a deed packet, recordings and notifications, sales proceed transfers, the final closing packet, and then we're going to end it off with a Q&A. And the Q&A, of course, is the important part because that's where you tend to learn the most, and that's when we get the most information that a lot of us have the same questions, and we want to get relayed to those questions and answers back to you. Of course, doesn't mean that those are all the questions, but we will show you how and where to get more information about our company, more information about the procedures, and some handbooks that you can find online on our website. In addition, our phone number, where you can always contact us with any questions that you may have. We okay, Johnny?
We are good.
All right. So let's talk about the preliminary title report. So you need to submit the prelim title to the appropriate email address you receive from us within 10 days of opening escrow. And that's the email that you receive from us is going to have all of the information of all the different emails of where to send certain documents. And that way you have that in front of you and know exactly what document goes to where. Is that correct, Johnny?
That's correct, because usually right after contract ratification, you would get some kind of email from us, and on there it would show you just the email addresses where you would be sending a certain documentations to, or if you have any questions, there's a closing department that you would be calling to.
Awesome. Okay. So, and then of course you're going to need to notify BLB at the same email address of any title issues. We'll work with the mortgagee compliance manager and or HUD to try to resolve the issues that in order to prevent any delays in closing. So in the event that we can't resolve something, we'll have to cancel the sale and reconvey the property back to the mortgagee. Anything further on that, Johnny?
It's very critical that we get the prelim title report early on during the transaction, during escrow period. Let's just say if we get it within the 10 days, and let's just say if there's a title on title, an issue on title, I'm sorry. Let's just say if HUD is not in title, if we know about it early on, we can work with the MCM, we can get with HUD, let's just say, to get a new deed into HUD's name, recorded, and if we get that done early, then there would not result in any delay in closing. But let's just say if we don't get it until 25 days, 30 days into escrow, and at that time we don't have any time left to work and resolve the issue.
Excellent. So all the escrow documents, as you can see on your screen, will be needed to sign at the time of the review and approve the estimated settlement deed package, settlement statement.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So let's move on. I think we've clarified that. As far as some more stuff on the estimated settlement statement, the deed package, and the whole seller deed packet. A couple of things. Of course, please do not submit the seller deed packet for approval unless loan documents are in escrow and closing funds are wired. So what is the issues with that, or what are the challenges we've had with that, Johnny?
Well, I mean, the most important thing is that the deed, HUD's deed, once it's executed, it's only good for 5 business days. And now we know that with the new trade, it's not going to be quick for the lender just to turn around, get loan docs, get funding, and get to closing. So if we don't have loan docs, because let's just say if they only have the clear to close and they notify escrow that they have the underwriting clear to close, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to quickly turn around, get loan docs, and then funding within that 5 business days. So because once we get the deed, we have to review it, and then let's just say we sign the deed, email it back to escrow for escrow to set it up for recording, and then we have to do it within that 5 days. So usually if we have to have loan docs into escrow, because once we have that, we know that the lender would be, I mean, most likely will be able to achieve that funding and recording for escrow to record within that 5 business days. And that's the reason why we don't recommend escrow to submit the package to us way too early, because then if that's the case, when we overnight the deed back, and if they don't record within that 5 business days, then escrow will have to redo the whole process all over again.
Perfectly understandable. And one thing you have to, one thing I want to mention, Johnny is not only the contract manager, but he's also the closing manager, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I am the closing manager for 5S, which is California and Hawaii, and I'm also the reconciliation manager for all 3 contracts.
Okay.
So that's why I'm seeing these issues. We are experiencing this issue every day, and that's the reason why we are doing this presentation.
So you're getting the information straight out of somebody that deals and works with us on a daily basis. So that's why it's important to pay attention, and if there's something that we're missing or something that we're not relaying in this presentation, we always have the tutorials that I'll show you how to get to as well. And then, of course, there's always a phone number that you can contact us with information. Johnny's a wealth of knowledge regarding this, so definitely utilize the advantage that you have on contacting Johnny or contacting our office for more information on stuff like this. So let's move on. It says that you have to submit the seller deed package to us as soon as the escrow receives the loan docs, which, of course, we want to note that the HUD executed deed package is only good for only 5 business days. Now, the deed package would need to include the following things, and that's, of course, we start off with a deed, the combined estimated selling statement, and the seller CD with the FHA number typed on both. Okay. The tax bill, HOA bill, utility bill, and any other demands that are needed, your prelim, the title report, the SANS 1103 HUD wiring instructions, which is pretty familiar to them, closing agents?
It's not usually, but that's the document that we would provide to escrow.
Okay, so you're going to get this document provided to you so that way you can submit it completed. And then all other lender and escrow docs that need to be signed by the seller. Anything further you want to reiterate on that, Johnny?
Just a little thing that we would need in order for us to review the package and approve it. We would need to have a complete package. Okay. And I mean that's another issue that we are seeing, we are experiencing almost every day. When we get the package, most of the time it's not complete. So and that's why, I mean, once with the trade, and we know that there's always delay with the lender, and so now we want to close early, and if we have any issue with the package, then we'll have to go back and forth and request corrections on it, then that would ultimately delay the closing. So I mean, it's very important to have a complete package to us so that we can review and approve it without the need of going back and forth and requesting corrections for it.
So we understand that a full package is needed, so that way we can move forward more quicker. So let's move on. Some common errors that we've seen on the seller deed package, which are important for you to pay attention to, because if there are common errors, that means they're happening more than often. So I'll let Johnny kind of go through these because that's his expertise. He's the one that actually gave me this list of common errors because he deals with this a lot. So Johnny, go ahead and go for that one because I know you have the knowledge on that one.
These are the issues that we see every day in all three contracts,
Okay.
3S, 5S, and 6S. I know that Escrow is, the expert in handling escrow process, but HUD transaction is just very, I would say, very different than just a standard escrow transaction. Normally, we do have the property address, so escrow always have the property address on the settlement statement, on the CD, and the lender requires that as well, but just the FHA case number, and that's something that normally escrow or the lender don't really pay attention to. But for HUD transaction, HUD requires that FHA case number to be referenced on both, and it has to be typed, not handwritten, on both the settlement statement and the CD. And that's usually something that we have to go back and forth and requesting correction most of the time from the escrow officer. So that's just something to keep in mind that we need that FHA case number reference typed on both the settlement statement and the CD.
It's interesting how you say this. I'm actually a licensed California broker myself, and I've been in the industry for so long. I've done lending, and I've done sales and real estate. The only thing that I really never touched on was escrow, and because it was so detailed-oriented and very, very intricate, you have to have everything, dot your I's, cross your T's, everything, and that was not me. I had somebody that was much better than me to do that, so I have a lot of respect for you escrow people, escrow agents out there, a lot of respect for Johnny because this information is really important, and it's definitely you've got to pay attention to what you're doing in order for it to be a smooth transaction. And I know as an agent, I depended on my escrow company, and it's the same thing with us. We depend on you guys depend on us. It's I scratch you back, you scratch mine, and we get a successful closing at the end. So all these things are really important to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Escrow, I don't know if escrow handle a lot of HUD transactions. We do have, probably escrow companies handle a lot more of the standard sales, and usually just for, let's just say, the private sellers, all they care about is just, getting it closed, getting the sales proceed, and then
that's the happiest time.
Over it, it's done. But
once it's closed, it's
just for HUD transaction, we have so many protocols that we have to follow, and that's why it's important to that we have a knowledge of,
I tell you, Johnny, sometimes I used to laugh after a closing. Sometimes I used to cry. There was many different emotions involved when you had a closing. So yeah, it's important.
Especially with HUD transaction, HUD expectation is that they want it and they expect their procedures, their policies, their requirements to be followed to a T. So it's critical for us to just to get it right.
All right.
And get it right the first time, I would say.
Sounds good. So we were at buyers' names must match the sales contracts.
And that's another thing too. On a standard transaction, as long as it's correct on the deed, let's just say the buyer's name is correct on the deed, everyone's happy. They don't really care. The seller doesn't really care about the buyer's name on the settlement statement, on the CD. The lender, maybe the lender would, but not the seller. But just for HUD, they want to make sure that the buyer's name is correct. And then again, most of the time the buyer was not present when the agent submitted the offer to HUD, and so there could be a lot of issue there because it could be spelling issue or it could be an issue with a missing middle initial, missing middle name when the agent submitted the bid and filling out the sales contract. And then so when we get to closing, if the buyer's name is different than that on the contract, then we need to have all the addendum to flag that discrepancy.
Okay.
And so that's why we have to make sure that the buyer's name is correct and match all the addenda that we have a contract.
Now, the missing seller's address, I'm curious, do we get people writing our address down as BLB Resources, or what kind of addresses do we see that?
Sometimes, I mean, we have escrow company put our address on that on the settlement.
And that's understood. I would probably have that, make that mistake sometimes too, unless.
And then sometimes we have the HUD, which is the Santa Ana HUD. That pretty much HUD home ownership center for the 5S contract or the 3S or the 6S contract. So we've seen that address on there as well.
Okay.
But HUD specifically wants to see this address on there, which is their headquarter address in D.C.
Okay, so that's that 451 7th Street Southwest in Washington, D.C., 20410.
That's correct.
All right.
That's the headquarter.
And you can see it in bold. It's on your screen, so write that down. All right, so what about the incorrect verbiage on line 5, the infamous line 5?
I think that's probably one of the most error, I would say, or issue that we see every day, where even though on contract, and then usually most of the time the agent would just say that's a closing cost credit that the seller is giving to the buyer. But I mean, for HUD transaction, there's so many other. HUD just wants to see the word credit specifically when it's actually a credit. Let's just say if it's a credit for vandalism after contract ratification and it's approved by HUD after ratification, and that's when they want the word credit on there. And other than that, we have to use the seller pay closing costs, because that's exactly what it is.
Gotcha.
The seller is paying for the buyer's closing costs. And so instead of the word seller credit for closing costs or whatever, then just put the seller pay closing costs for that line 5 if seller is paying for buyer's closing costs.
Okay. Incorrect tax proration. What's up with that one?
Well, I mean, this is another, since it's the most common errors, I would say that we see these every day. I know that
these are the top 6, by the way.
The top ones. So, I mean, we understand that escrow software, they have different version, different types of software. So, in some we see that escrow software is using a 360 day per year system, and then some just use strictly 30 days per month, and
I see. Okay, so that can make the calculations way off then.
A little bit off, I would say. And if it's over a day, the per diem per day, then it's going to be an issue for HUD. And not only that, sometimes, I mean, for escrow software, we have certain boxes where we check to include the beginning date, or another box to include the ending date, or just exclude the beginning date, the end date. So that's where we have to pay attention to. And HUD uses a 365 day per year system. And then also the charges on the actual day of the recording is the buyer's responsibility.
I see. Okay.
So let's just say if the property records today, then whatever charges for today, let's just say taxes, HOA, utility, those per diem, or even extension, because the buyer needs today for the property to record, which means that the buyer will be responsible for those charges.
Okay. So we have to remember 365. When we're dealing with tax prorations, remember the number 365, which is 365 days for the whole year. And then, did we mention about the missing extension?
And I just mentioned that as well.
Yeah, you just included that in there. So we're good to go there. So those are your most common errors that we've seen. Of course, we see more errors than these, but these are the ones that we see often, and we wanted to make sure that you're aware of them since they are the big bulk of our errors that we see.
And I can tell you that I mean we have been doing this buy-select program for 3 years now, since 2013.
Correct.
And just these are the issues, and we understand that we have new escrow companies coming in.
Right.
And even with the companies that we already have before, but sometimes we don't have that many. Let's just say we only handle 2 a month, or maybe 2 in a couple of months for that escrow company. So it's usually it's easy to forget.
Right.
So this is just a good reminder for just so that we know what we need to do for a HUD transaction.
And one thing I want to point out as well, we understand that certain people like visual learning, some people like audible learning, and some people like reading, just written material. So what we're going to do with this video, not only as a video, but we're also going to take it and take the audio portion and create a podcast on it where it's an audio version, so that way you'll have it as an audio version too if you're more of an audible learner. In addition, I will edit this video where we'll break it down into smaller videos, like more like 2-minute, 3-minute videos, relating to subject by subject. So that way, if you really want to jump in and just figure out one common error about certain things like tax proration, you just watch the video on that particular segment. So it's going to be a quicker learning for you guys as well. So just keep that in mind. We'll be rolling that out after we get this whole video out to you guys. All right, recording notifications. Talk to us about that, Johnny.
I mean, this is also very critical as well. And for notification, and we would need to know the most current status update of that file. Let's just say if the file closes today, we would need to know that we have recording confirmation the same day. The reason, I mean, the underlying reason for that is that now we need to quickly turn around and notify the FSM, our LLB, so that we can prevent any unpleasant situation. Let's just say if the FSM crew is going out to the property to do an inspection, or even our LLB, or even, I mean, HUD staff doing home field inspection and going out to the property, and if the buyer has recording confirmation, the buyer has, I mean, is moving in, or maybe already inside the house, that would create a very unpleasant situation for anybody else. I mean, the FSM, HUD, the LLB, if they are trying to gain access to the property. I mean, it could potentially be a safety issue for the parties involved as well.
Yeah.
So we need to know that the same day and as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. And just to remind you, LLB stands for Local Listing Broker in HUD's world. So if you hear that term, it stands for Local Listing Broker, which means a listing agent. So just wanted to throw that out for you. FSM, of course, is your Field Service Manager. But yeah, I know that recording is absolutely important, because when I was a lender or when I was an agent selling, it was definitely the happy dance. We did the happy dance when we heard the recording. So we really want to know when this is getting recorded, because we all do the happy dance everywhere. So,
absolutely.
All right. So let's move on with the sales proceed transfer. So the wire must be sent to HUD no later than the next business day. Follow carefully the SAMS 1103 instructions, wiring instructions, and must reference the FHA case number and the property address on the wire, so that HUD knows where to post the funds to. Anything additional in regards to that?
Yeah, there's a little thing I want to add to this, is that so that we understand that HUD, I mean, the wire is actually, it's not going to BLB, it's going directly to the U.S. Treasury in New York City.
Okay.
I mean, where they get millions of wires a day, and without the specific of the reference of the FHA case number and the property address, then that wire is going to be floating out there. They have no idea where to post that funds to, so it's important that we have the FHA case number and the property address reference on that wire, so that it can be posted to the correct account.
Very understandable on that, sure. Okay, sounds great. And then the final closing package. So as you can see, there's a lot of things involved in that. John, you want to kind of summarize that in a nutshell here?
Yeah, I mean, when it's pretty much the same documentations we've seen on the seller deed package or the pre-audit, the estimated and deed package. We already see a lot of those here. It's just that now it comes down to the final version of those docs.
Okay.
And at this stage, once we get the recording confirmation, we don't have a lot of time to reconcile the case in HUD system. And we have a very strict timeline from HUD to reconcile the case. So especially with that requirement that the wire will have to be sent to HUD no later than the next business day.
Okay.
So, I mean, then right after that, we would need to have the final closing package in right away, because so then the next day, if let's just say the wire is transferred correctly, HUD already sees that funds in their account. But if we don't reconcile that case right now, that's going to be an issue, because now we have HUD is seeing that they receive funds here, but there's nothing to apply it to, because they have multiple systems that they have to reconcile together and just to close out the case in all systems. So with the constraint in the time frame that we have, we only have 2 or 3 days to reconcile the case. So and this is the area where we spend, I would say, most of our time on, because we don't first we don't get the full and complete correct package. Not only that, I mean, sometimes we don't get the package until 3-4 days after, and that's going to be an issue. And when we have that issue coming up, then we have to report the incident to HUD. And that's going to be, and we are doing that on a monthly basis, and it's called a CAT, or a closing agent deficiency report. And if HUD sees those escrow companies' names coming up again and again, and that would be an issue, and that's where HUD could potentially revoke the title ID.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's important that we have the complete final closing package as soon as the wire is sent out.
Okay.
And when we are talking about a complete package, we would have to have all of these documents listed on the screen right there. So we would have to have, because now it's the final package. Okay. So we would have to have the settlement statement and the CD certified this time, because it's certified to be the final and the correct document. And again, we would need to have the FHA case number reference on both. This time we would need to have the buyer signature page of the estimate settlement statement. We would need to have the wire confirmation, which is evidence that the wire has been sent. And this is not just a request, and this is the document where we have the most issue with, or the most problem with, where most of the time we get the wire order, which is just the request that escrow sent to the bank, but it's not the actual wire confirmation that we get, or that would be generated after the wire has been sent. Okay. So on there, we should be looking for a FAT reference number or an IMAP number. So on there, we would want to make sure that there's a FAT reference number. We want to see all the details with an FHA case number and the property address reference on the wire. We would need to see where it's going to, because we want to make sure that it's not going to the wrong account.
Mm-hmm.
So we would need to see a full detail confirmation.
Okay.
In addition to that, we need to have a deed that was delivered for recording, and this is the deed from HUD into the buyer. We would need to see that. If HUD is paying for buyer's closing costs, then we want to see that LIFI breakdown. So we want to make sure that the buyer is getting the correct amount, and those amounts are eligible and
so a closing cost breakdown of
it's
line
called
5.
A closing cost breakdown.
Okay.
Of course, any invoices that HUD paid on the settlement statement or at closing, then we need evidence of those just to justify for those.
Like the tax rolls, utility, HOA demands, anything like that.
Exactly. And then we also need to see the disbursement log, which is sometimes it's just the check registry from Escrow, and then if let's just say we have Escrow and we have another sub-Escrow company or a title company handling the payment of taxes and all of that, so we need that additional log as well, just to show that the taxes were paid correctly.
Okay. And then the last one?
And the last one, we don't see it very often, but if it's a GNND, which is a good neighbor next door transaction where the buyer gets a 50% discount from the sales price, for those transactions, then we need, you should be having the note and the second mortgage, and please ensure that those documents, especially the second mortgage, is recorded, and we want to see a copy of that as well.
Okay. So there you have it as far as the final closing packet is concerned. Just make sure that all those items are included in it, so that way we complete the whole course of the transaction. So moving on, I wanted to show you some online resources that are available to you. Just like I said, some people learn in different ways, and these are different ways of capturing more information, more tutorials, and more handbooks about our procedures. And of course, the main place you want to go to is our website at blbresources.com. And when you get to our website, you'll see an Agent Resources tab on top, or on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a picture of a real nice lady that says Agent Resources. You click on that, or you click on the tab above, and you'll see a drop-down menu, or it'll open up into a menu that says, or the states, where you pick your state that you're in. Once you click on the state that you're in, you can look at the tutorial and information links under the title Closing Agent Information. Most likely it'll be on the right-hand column of the website, top right-hand column. So depending on how your screen looks, that should be where it's at. So please refer to that for more information, and so you can learn more different things about different procedures when it comes to the escrow side of the business. So getting into the final phase of this video, which is the Q&A, we want to ask some questions. There's about 4 or 5 of these questions, if I'm not mistaken, that are most common asked questions, and we'll provide the answers for you there. So let's start with the first one. I'll ask the question. Johnny, you're the maestro of this whole thing, so you're going to help us out with the answers. So what is required by HUD in regards to the closing statement?
I mean, we touched this a little bit previously throughout the presentation, but I just wanted to go into details a little bit. That's why we have this Q&A, so that we can go deeply into details as to what is pertaining to. So of course, for a financing transaction, the CD is required just because of it's a trade, and the CD is a must. And so, but for HUD transaction, not only HUD wants to see the CD, and we understand that sometimes the lender doesn't provide, or escrow is unable to disclose the buyer's information to us on the CD as far as the buyer side of the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So HUD only wants to see the seller side of it, which is the seller transaction, just so whatever pertaining to or cost to the seller, HUD wants to see it.
Okay.
And on top of that, HUD requires a combined settlement statement. So on the settlement statement, it's just a statement prepared by Escrow, and that's where HUD wants to see both the seller and the buyer side. So that let's just say the reason why HUD wants to also see the buyer side of it is just that because sometimes let's just say if HUD is paying for seller's closing costs,
mm-hmm.
they want to make sure that those are the actual cost that the buyer incurs.
Okay.
Because if the buyer is not paying for it, then there's no reason for HUD to credit the buyer or to pay it on the buyer's behalf since the buyer doesn't pay for it. Not only that, absolutely no credit can be given to the buyer out of the agent's commission.
Okay, that's important.
So,
so no home warranty credit or anything like that.
There's none of that.
Okay.
None of those.
Because sometimes that happens where the agent wants to pay for a home warranty credit for the buyer as a gift or whatever the case may be. That's a no-no on a HUD transaction.
Yeah. I mean that's I guess that's just a standard practice on the standard transaction out there. But just for HUD transaction, just because of the nature is very different, because the agent submitted the offer through a bidding process online,
right?
And they use a name, which is a register, a name and address identifier that's uniquely assigned to that office by HUD. So when they use that name to submit the offer and put in a certain amount for the commission, now that amount is tied to the name. At the end of the year, the HUD system will automatically generate a 1099 for that amount that is tied to that name, that office. So now let's just say if they use that commission to credit the buyer to pay for the home warranty or even to split it and pay directly to the selling agent. Now that broker, that name is not getting the full amount. Let's just say when they submitted the offer, they put in $2,500 for the commission. But if let's just say they use $500 of it to pay for the home warranty, let's just say, now they're only getting a check for $2,000. But her system doesn't know that.
Okay.
They still going to generate a 1099 for $2,500 to that office. And now, when the broker is looking at it and say, well, I don't get the full $2,500, so now I'm going to call HUD and ask for a correction. HUD will not do it. HUD will not make the correction since, that's not something that's approved by HUD, and that's just a request and usually the agent sends these requests to escrow company all the time. But just so that we know that we're not going to honor those requests without HUD approval.
Okay, awesome. Question number 2, how does HUD handle proration?
We've gone through this before, and HUD just uses the 365 day per year system.
Oh, we're back at that 365. Okay,
because
gotcha.
The reason why we put it on here again is just because that's the issue that we see every day.
Okay.
So just remember to use the 365, and then also the actual closing date or recording date is the buyer's responsibility. And also now we are getting to the final package. When escrow submits the seller deed package at that time, it's only the estimated closing date because that date could change. So now when we get to the final stage, let's just say if the date changes, let's just say if the closing is delayed and it did not close until a day after. Okay. If that's the case, then now escrow will have to adjust those prorations, the extensions, refund or charge, all of that according to the actual closing date, because now there's an additional date that
Okay.
needs to be handled.
Okay, so remember the 365 as we mentioned earlier in the presentation. We're good there?
We're good.
All right. How soon will Escrow have to notify BLB of the recording?
We've also discussed this before, and it will have to be the same day. As soon as Escrow receives that recording confirmation, please send us an email, give us a call, and let us know so that we can notify the field service manager, the FSM, the listing agent, or even HUD, and update HUD system as well, so that we can have that most up-to-date status for that property.
Excellent. All right. Moving on. How does Escrow wire sales proceeds to HUD?
When we review the seller deed package, the SAMS 11, actually there's we apologize here, actually there's a form, it's a form 1103, not 1106. There must be a typo on here.
Oh, okay.
So we apologize for that, but it's the form
we can
is
change
actually,
that.
So the actual form is the SAMS 1103, and that's HUD wiring instructions. At the seller deed package, we require this document to be filled out by the escrow company, and so on there, there would be HUD bank account, HUD, and the routing, the bank account, the routing, and just the name, whatever that we need to reference on that wire.
Okay.
And especially again here, just please make sure to reference both the FHA case number and the property address on that wire, so HUD knows exactly where to post the funds to.
Right. As you mentioned, they get a lot of wires in. We want to make sure that they know where to post it to.
Yeah.
All right. And then we're going to replace that SAMS 1106 to 1103, so we'll make a note on the video to make that edit. The next question we have is, can escrow follow broker agent's instructions regarding their commission? And this is a great question because we've seen problems. Or challenges, I should say, not problems.
Yeah. And we just talked about this, and the things that why we bring it up again, because when we see an issue like this, then we have to immediately report it to HUD. And that's going to be, I mean, it doesn't look good if we continue to report these issues over and over again. So the really doesn't matter what kind of instructions we escrow company get from the selling agent, from the broker. I mean, absolutely none of those can be honored or followed. The commission will have to be disbursed according to contract with the exact same amount on contract to the exact brokerage on contract.
Yeah, so the agent can't come and say, oh, well, split this commission between me and this other agent, and, you know, we're all good to go. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
There's no wiggle room. There's no flexibility in this whatsoever. It has to be, there's only one way to disburse commission, which is for that exact same amount
right.
of contract to the exact
same person brokerage
on contract.
Okay.
And this is because of the 1099 issue that we just mentioned earlier.
Okay. I think that's clear as it gets on that one. And then this is actually the last question, if I'm not mistaken. Is it? Yes, it is. So what is required by HUD in regards to the final closing package? And I know Johnny spoke about this in the special slide that we had, but just as a reminder, because we get this question a lot. So here we go.
Yeah, just like I just mentioned a little bit earlier, we've been handling the buyer-select closing agent for the last 3 years, and I mean, these are the issues that we are still seeing every day. I mean, I you know, to the extent that I would say 80-90% of the closings that we have, and that is significant, especially when if you know, if you look at it as we have, hundreds of cases that we need to reconcile, and within a very strict timeline, we have 3 business days max to reconcile the case in HUD system. And let's just say we have 100 of these cases, and if we have to go back and pull up requesting corrections and requesting missing documentation, up to 80-90% of the cases, we're not going to be able to achieve that timeline. We're not going to be able to meet that timeline. So it's very important that we have the complete package the very first time.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to read these off to you myself, so that way for those that are going to be listening on the audio have an idea of what we're talking about. So the final closing package, here's what must be included in all of the following documents, okay? You need to have a certified combined settlement statement and a certified seller CD with a HUD FHA case number referenced on both, okay? Number 2, you need a buyer's signature page of the estimated settlement statement. 3, you need a wire confirmation fully detailed with Fed reference number or IMAD number. It's really important that you have one of those numbers on there. 4th, you'll need a copy of the deed that was delivered for recording. Number 5 is the closing cost breakdown for line 5 of the sales contract if seller paid for any portion of the buyer's closing costs. 6, copy of all invoices that HUD paid at closing, for example, tax rolls, utility, HOA demands, etc., and that kind of stuff. And number 7, the disbursement log, which is the additional disbursement log from title, is required if applicable to show tax payment. Okay, these are the areas that we're continuing to experience the most issues with escrow submitting the package late and or incomplete to us. So as you can see, it was stated audibly, so that way if you're hearing audio, you can understand exactly what is included in the final closing package, so that way we're all clear and to the point. Anything else regarding this, Johnny, you want to add?
I think that we are good. We pretty much cover everything, or especially, I would say, just the issue areas that we are experiencing every day, and that's the whole purpose of this presentation.
So we wanted to make sure that it's not something that you're going to get to learn every single thing from A to Z. If you want to learn in much more detail about the whole closing agent program, definitely there's tutorials online on their website. As I mentioned to you, blbresources.com. This was more abbreviated to touch on points that we've been seeing challenges on, some errors, and stuff that we want to just remind you that are important during a transaction to us, to HUD, and in relation to you closing agents and our listing agents and selling agents, of course. We respect every one of you. We want to make sure it's a smooth transaction. We always say communication is the best resource to having a successful closing in any transaction. So feel free to contact us directly by phone at 949-261-9155. Again, it's 949-261-9155. Or visit our website at blbresources.com. Click on the agent resources. Choose the state that you're in, and every piece of document as far as seller broker handbooks, our closing agent handbooks, HOA documents, utility activation, anything that you need to access regarding a HUD transaction is located on the website for your convenience. So Johnny, with that said, is there anything else you want to leave us off with before we move on here today?
No, I just wanted to thank you everyone for just taking the time out of your busy day just to join us today. And we are looking forward to having a very smooth transaction with you next time around.
Awesome. And I would love to say a happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone out there that is watching us or listening to us. It's an important time of the year for us. Memorial Day, of course, it's important not just for barbecues, but also remembering the true meaning of Memorial Day. Thank you very much, folks. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you again, everyone.